Welcome to Coffee and a Weather Map with Jeff. It is again close to 1 o'clock, and that's what happens when you get addicted to the Tour de France over the years, as I have. Anyways, we jump into things. We'll get this to work this time. I wanted to show yesterday's surface analysis from 15Z, which would be 11 o'clock local time here in Michigan and 10 o'clock in the central time zone. You noticed how the cold front, and I will zoom in on that, all the way down there that went into eastern New Mexico, almost getting down into portions of West Texas, but especially the Panhandle. And I think I remarked about how this will be going north because cold air can't really survive since it's so far away from the jet stream. And here's what it looks like today at 15Z today. So just about 2 hours ago when this map was analyzed, that cold front that was way down in New Mexico and part of West Texas has now gone all the way back up to western Nebraska, almost into South Dakota now. Of course, the front itself also goes goes stationary and continues all the way out to the East Coast in the Mid-Atlantic states. And that will be a major issue here, as we'll see coming up. One other thing to note is that the front is through New England, so things should start to clear up there, just like they did here in the Great Lakes. As we look at the upper air pattern, things have not changed a whole lot. The jet stream goes from the west to the east, all along the Canadian border. There's some hints of a little bit of wiggle, like up there near British Columbia and the Pacific Northwest, where there's a little bit of a trough that's trying to move through. You can say the same thing there in the Dakotas a bit, especially with that little speed max in there. And then the main trough that just moved off as the cold front is going out, that's there in the northern part of New England and up into the Canadian Maritime provinces. Otherwise, the rest of the country is under, for the most part, a ridge of high pressure that stretches all the way up to the Ohio Valley. Now, as things progress here through the next several days, there is some signals that there's going to be a bigger ridge in the west, or I'm sorry, in the east, and that'll go a little bit further north, spreading that heat further north, but that will come for a different day. As we look at the current watch, warning, and advisories across the United States, there's only a few things to be concerned with around there. If you're going to the beach in Maine, especially up there in part of Maine, there is a beach hazard statement that goes through this evening there. Let's see, north of, looks like if I can get basically east of Bangor, although that's not on the coast, but everything along the coastline there that is east of Bangor, Maine. There is some small craft advisories off Massachusetts and just south of the Long Island Sound. Into the Mid-Atlantic, this is the main issue. They have that large flood watch. There's even, I think, if I can get this to go, yes, there is a flash flood warning that remains in effect till 2:15 in portions of West Virginia. Otherwise, a flood watch there that goes from eastern Kentucky for the Jackson, Kentucky forecast area, where I used to work a long time ago, all the way east to the Norfolk area, and all as far north as just south of the Mason-Dixon line there, Pennsylvania and Maryland and part of West Virginia. That whole area is under a flood watch due to the fact that we have that front that just won't leave. Of course, south of the front, where it's fairly warm and it's not really triggering a lot of thunderstorms, we have a heat advisory there in the eastern Carolinas. There is also a fairly large heat advisory and even an extreme heat warning in a good portion of Arkansas, and some of those heat advisories stretch up into southern Illinois and western Kentucky, as well as western Tennessee and northwestern Mississippi, and as far west as the Tulsa area and some of the portions of northeast Texas, especially around the Arklatex, it looks like. One of the things also they have with the remnants of 93L, and you can see some of the radar there, they still have flood watches in southern Louisiana and portions of southern Mississippi. And then just taking a look further out in New Mexico, there is a flood watch that remains there between Las Cruces and Roswell. Looks like it's in the Sacramento Mountains, probably due to a burn scar in that area and some rain. There are 2 red flag warnings. So if you're in southeastern Idaho, this one was up due to scattered thunderstorms and gusty outflow winds in those areas. So basically it's a kind of a dry lightning and gusty winds that can cause fires to start and or move out quickly. But the other one's the old-fashioned one, or at least the ones we used to get in northern Michigan that when I was the fire weather program leader up there. The red flag warning is for low humidities and wind, and that's usually the cause of most of the red flag warnings. And that stretches from portions of Idaho into eastern Washington and then down into central Oregon, which is just east of the Cascades. All right, so let's take a look at the rest of the severe weather outlook for the country. We have a couple of areas of concerns. The marginal itself pretty much stretches from the Rocky Mountains all the way to the mid-Atlantic. There is a break there in Missouri, but it's all part of that front that is stretched out across the United States. There are 2 areas of slight risk, which are closer to some of the low pressure systems or just that stalled front in the mid-Atlantic. So one is the mid-Atlantic there, right around Virginia and northern North Carolina, as well as then the other one, which is in the northern plains, basically South Dakota, Minnesota, northeastern Nebraska, and northwestern Iowa. As we look at day 2, there's a big area of slight risk in the Great Lakes and in the Mississippi Valley, the mid-Mississippi Valley, I should say. That's the main concern, and that's an area of low pressure, and we can kind of take a look at day 2 there. That kind of goes through Michigan with the cold front stretched out by tomorrow morning from the thumb of Michigan all the way back into Kansas. And that is the main concern, that we will have at least a slight risk. And if you remember, a level 2 is a better than a 15% chance of severe weather for a point. And in this case, let's just take a look at southern lower Michigan for day 2. And we will take a look at some of the probabilities. So severe wind is one of those issues. 15 to 29% is what it is for the probability of having wind, severe wind within 25 miles of a point. We'll just quickly go back. There's a little bit of a hail risk on that, and they also, for that area, basically outlined from just a little bit short of the tip of the thumb back to Mount Pleasant and then down through Grand Rapids and then back into the Chicago area. There is a 2% chance for a tornado outlook. So that is something that will need to be watched for tomorrow. If need be, if we have a wide enough severe weather outbreak getting up into Michigan, I may go live with it. Usually I do it for northern Michigan or South Texas, but this kind of affects our area with where we are currently living in the RV. Here, so day 3, then there's a large marginal risk that stretches all the way from North Dakota and then down through the mid-Mississippi Valley and then out to the East Coast. That includes a lot of the mid-Atlantic states all the way up into southern New England, which would be Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Connecticut. And I just had these up just so you could see where the front is. on each of those days as things move through. And you can kind of see that also on the excessive rain outlook. We'll start over here. Oh, this is the one. So out in the west, there is some areas of concern in the west with a slight risk in Nevada, and then also Arizona and New Mexico. Probably more monsoonal moisture that is trying to move up over those regions today and then up the Rocky Mountains. And then the rest of the area is kind of where we've outlined it with the front that goes through and the severe weather for today, with the slight risk for flash flooding in Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, and small portions of South Dakota and Nebraska. The main area is where it's been, that front has just been hanging out, which is in the mid-Atlantic states. And that basically runs from central Kentucky all the way up to near Pittsburgh in West Virginia, then down into the Norfolk area, and then across the northern part of North Carolina, with that moderate right around the DC area. So if you're in those areas in Front Royal, let's see, let's actually zoom in on that. We can kind of take a look at that. So here's the chance for flash flooding. There's that moderate risk there in Northern Virginia. More like Charlottesville is the area, just outside of the Washington, D.C. Area is where they're expecting it. That's a little bit better look. You can see Front Royal, Charlottesville, just south of Winchester, right along the I-84 that runs between Winchester and Roanoke. All right, for day 2, again, along that front, it's just sitting there. We're probably going to have some moderates that pop up along this as well. We're also going to probably have a little bit of severe weather that forces some of this south of the cold that front that's going to run through Michigan, and a lot of that area, that slight risk, which goes from basically Iowa all the way to the East Coast there between Virginia and North Carolina again. And then on day 3, with that last little bit of the next front trying to move in and the one that's just trying to leave, we have that area of slight risk that goes from pretty much West Virginia and eastern Tennessee all the way back up into southwestern Iowa, or southeastern Iowa. I don't want to misspeak that. Otherwise, if we look at the Hurricane Center, the next 7 days, maybe it says next 7 days is going to be at least not expected. There's nothing brewing at this point. I saw some people trying to put out things that one of the model ensembles had tried to show something in the Gulf trying to form again. I think they got a little excited from what had just happened with 93L. And then something else forming off there by Georgia. However, when I got on new European ensembles that were run last night, they're showing pretty much something that's up off the Carolina coast and further out. And then there's nothing as we go through into August out there at all. And this would any of those possibilities were supposed to take place further out than 7 days. So they were pretty weak. They were like 5% or 10% or less where these would go. So take anything that you see on the internet with a grain of salt when people are trying to show that. Unless they're really high probabilities and you've got several models, including several ensemble models showing it, then maybe it's something to be concerned with. All right, let's wrap this up with the forecasts. So for northern Michigan, today and the weekend, they have a weekend outlook in here on this graphic. So temperatures in the 70s around northern Michigan, with lows in the mid 50s to lower 60s. That's going to be the case again the next couple of days, although there's a scattered showers and thunderstorms tomorrow with highs of 68 to 82. Sunday, highs 72 to 80, drier and mostly clear. Temperatures go a little bit cooler with mainly 50s for lows. Beach forecast doesn't look too bad today, Saturday, and Sunday in Lake Michigan and Lake Huron. The biggest thing is the chance for thunderstorms. Otherwise, temperatures are going to be in the 70s each day, and the waves will be less than 2 feet, so we're looking at a low swim risk in the Great Lakes. And for South Texas, one of the nice things is it looks like they're adding a weekend outlook, so I'm not going to do the full 5-day, but for today, continued hot and dry, temperatures out around 100 degrees in the west to the upper 80s along the beach along the Gulf. As we look at the beach cast itself, well, actually they say mid 80s today. Winds will be out of the south at 10 miles an hour. Wave heights around 2 feet. Low rip current risks. And so for the rest of the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, we have afternoon highs in the east of 90 to 95 each day. In the west, 96 to 101. Heat indices will be 100 to 110, so there could be a few heat advisories later on during that time. We'll see how that turns out. Morning lows should be in the mid 70s to around 80 degrees. The 80s will probably be near the Gulf Coast. And rain chances on each day, well, it's 20 to 30% in the east, probably due to the sea breeze here on Saturday. Sunday looks like it's less than 20% in the east. Everywhere else is not expected to really have anything. So if you enjoy the South Texas summer, this is going to be a nice weekend. And with that, we're going to close everything out. So go out and have a great day.